I was called when she was 24 hours old, and I was there in Costa Rica in 24 hours. I had my suitcase packed because I knew it was coming close, and got a phone call, and she said, your baby's been born. It's a little girl. I can go. So I did. I followed her down this hall and into this bedroom. I just walked up to this bed, and she pointed down to this baby, and she goes, here she is. Here's your baby. And I started to cry.
Oh.
There's this perfect little baby just laying there on the bed, and it was my child.
Oh. Hello, friends. I wanted to slip in here real quick before I started the interview. First of all, have you noticed the background's a little bit different? We're painting my office. So I'm in the living room. And that's my daughter, Sarah, right there. All right, but that's not what I want to tell you about. What I want to tell you is that this video is going to look a little bit different. And that's because when I recorded this interview with Mary, it was only audio. No video at all. And how do you demonstrate that on YouTube? So I had to do things a little differently. And of course, I could add pictures, but I wanted you to see me and Mary as we spoke. So I did something really out of the norm for me. And that was, I used something very new for me, and it's avatars. So I have an avatar for me and I have an avatar for Mary. And it's just so you can see the two of us through this interview, so I can make it into a video. And I'd love to hear what you think of it. I don't intend to use this on a regular basis. It's just to help make this audio into a video. So let me know what you think. While you're here, be sure to like and subscribe to the Dear Daughters of God channel. Hello, I am Stephanie Eccles. This is Dear Daughters of God. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. This is episode 25. Faith, Heartbreak, Hope, a motherhood miracle you'll never forget. I am a retired school administrator, natural storyteller, and I am a daughter of God. Now I tell the stories of our lives from the perspective of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Welcome, dear daughters of God. I address you that way because that's what you are to Him. To our Heavenly Father, you are dear. All right, this is a special day at Dear Daughters of God. We have a guest. She's wonderful. Her name is Mary Taintor. Welcome, Mary.
It's so nice to be here with you.
Thank you. I got to meet Mary at a friend's house named Stacy Harmer. She's so good at bringing people together, isn't she?
Oh, she's amazing.
And Mary and I hit it off right away. And I got to hear some of Mary's journey on becoming a mother of so many children. I thought, Mary, this is amazing. You've got to come and tell me this story for Dear Daughters. And here she is, ready to tell us a story about a particular daughter. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But first, I want to give a formal introduction of Mary Taintor. Mary Taintor, alongside her husband Reed of nearly 50 years, is a devoted mother of 7, grandmother to 23, and recently a proud great-grand Mary. Her life is a testament to the deep commitment she has to her expanding family, creating cherished traditions like handmade Christmas pajamas that knit the generations together. Her creative spirit doesn't just flourish within the family, it extends to her professional life as a skilled dressmaker, known for her bespoke wedding dresses and unique costumes. Mary's artistic talents, which were further developed through her studies in Spain, enrich her work in oil painting and pottery. Her love for the natural world is evident in her passion for gardening, a skill that was showcased during her tenure at Red Butte Gardens. As the owner of Excel Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork, Mary continues to dedicate herself to the well-being of others, providing care and relaxation through her therapeutic services. Living by the motto, move forward in love, Mary, with Reed by her side, embodies a life of creativity, compassion, and an unwavering dedication to her family and community.
now embracing the joyous addition of great grandparenthood. Oh, so wonderful to have Mary with us. Today, Mary's going to share a story about one of her children named Janie. And Mary, how old is Janie today?
Well, she's now 40, but I did get her when she was only 2 days old. I was called when she was 24 hours old, and I was there in Costa Rica in 24 hours.
Now that's fast. You got to
I
Rica.
took a plane.
You took a good thing. You took a plane and you got there in 24 hours. Did you know she was coming any day?
Yeah, I knew there's actually 3 babies that were lined up that could possibly have my baby. And I knew the names of the mothers, and I knew that Alba was my baby's mother's name. I knew that before she was born.
So you knew it was going to be the mother named Alba.
I knew that would be the mother.
Wonderful. So Alba gave birth to Janie. Then what happened?
Well, I first want to start with a scripture.
Yes.
That when I was really young, I was probably around 7 years old, I decided to read the Book of Mormon. That was kind of a big feat for a 7-year-old. I read through it, and I think it took me quite a while to read even up to 1 Nephi, chapter 3, verse 7, and it says, "And it came to pass that I, Nephi, said unto my father, I will go and do the things which the Lord hath commanded. For I know that the Lord giveth no commandment unto the children of men, save he shall prepare a way for them, that they may accomplish the things which he commandeth them." That was so profound to me, and that's actually where I stopped reading at that point in my life, because, I didn't know it could get any better than that. And my dad, through my whole life, always said to me, Mary, you can do anything you put your mind to, because he saw that in me.
He saw that in you. So your dad said, Mary, you can do anything that you put your mind to.
That's right. And he always said that to me my whole life. And he said it to my twin as well, because both of us were really go-getters with whatever we did.
So you have a twin?
Identical twin.
Identical twin.
Yeah, we even have matching glasses. Yeah.
And what's her name?
Holly.
Holly.
See, Holly and Mary, we were born right before Christmas time.
Oh, perfect names.
Yeah. So
for Christmas babies.
Yeah. We were a lot of work.
So he said it to both you and Holly.
He always really encouraged us to do whatever we put our mind to, that we were capable of doing that.
What a blessing to have a father that had that kind of understanding for his daughters.
So grateful to him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to Janie.
Well, what happened is there was a series of events. I was about 27. I no longer was able to have any more children. And I had a little girl, Holly, and a little boy named Adam, which were just a joy to me, that I could not have asked for more perfect children. I can still say that about them. In fact, all my children are just amazing. So I'm very grateful for them.
That's incredible that you can still say that about them this many years later. How old are those two now?
Holly's 48 and Adam's 46.
46.
And if I got that wrong, they'll make sure to correct me later.
Okay.
After we decided to adopt, or actually I decided that we were going to adopt, which isn't, I think, how most things happen in families. At least it does in our family. I was able to locate a woman that was actually at BYU that was finishing up her master's, and she was from Costa Rica, and she helped locate unwed mothers that wanted to place their babies for adoption. What she usually had happen is she would have the family that she was going to help locate a baby. They would pay for her to go home and do that, and then she'd come back. But we opted not to do that because we were on a real tight budget. So we waited till she graduated and went home.
I see.
So, but during that time, we had like 20 documents we had to get together and have them all translated into Spanish and sent to the Consulate General of Costa Rica to have them approved, so we could then move forward with the adoption. So we waited 18 months before we could actually go. On September 20th, 1993, I got a phone call, and I was waiting by the phone every day. I even had my suitcases packed because I knew it was coming close, and got a phone call, and I'll call her Mercy, was on the other line, and she said, your baby's been born. It's a little girl. My husband wasn't home at the moment, and just a little bit later, he came driving, and I came running out to tell him, and I slipped, and I fell.
Oh, dear.
And he thought for sure he was in trouble, of course. I fell. I got up and got to tell him, she's been born. And he said, it's a girl? I said, yes, Janie's been born, because we'd already decided on what we'd name her. The very next morning, we had this news like around 9 o'clock in the evening. So I was on the plane at 6 a.m. in the morning. And we were able to do that because we had a friend who actually helped make arrangements for missionaries to leave on their missions. And so every day she would book me a flight and then she'd cancel it for me and she'd book me another flight. So I remember that night she lived next door, running over to her house, say, okay, I'm going to be in the morning. I can go. So I did. So it was a long flight over there. I had a layover in Florida, I believe, but it seemed like it took forever to get there. I don't think I got there till 9 or 10 that evening. And I felt super disoriented. I felt like I had left my contact information, the list I had left it at home. And I had these big, huge Costa Rica bills that I didn't even know what they were, but I had cash. And getting off the plane, we were in this hangar, this airplane hangar. It wasn't like I expected, like in Salt Lake City. Mm-hmm. And I went in and no one was in the airport. They were all outside. And I was dreading that Mercy was not going to pick me up. But there she was, and I was so relieved. And I got in her car, and she just started driving. She asked me about my flight and how excited she was to have me meet my daughter. And we actually went to her house. Okay. And I kind of was still kind of in a blur. I was tired, and I'd been up so long, and she said, oh, just follow me. And I followed her down this hall and into this bedroom. I just walked up to this bed, and she pointed down to this baby, and she goes, here she is. Here's your baby.
What? The baby was right there?
Yeah. I just caught me off guard. And it was like this Mercy's aunt was right there, Aunt Rosa, and she started to cry. And I started to cry. Oh. There's this perfect little baby just laying there on the bed, and it was my child.
Oh.
I have a scripture.
Yes, what is it?
It's in Psalms.
Yes.
Psalms 37, verses 3 through 5. It says, trust in the Lord and do good, so he shall dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt he feed. Delight yourself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. Commit thy way unto the Lord. Trust in him, and he shall bring it to pass. And that's how I felt when I saw her. Like she was the desire of my heart.
I can see why that really was just shocking, because you weren't expecting the baby to be right there, but at the same time, it was still wonderful.
Well,
but to see her just like that.
Well, yeah, I've been told by so many people, this will never happen. In fact, the same day that I left, the caseworker for our case that did our initial home study, she had to come again to update our home study. And she told my husband that day, I know your wife's gone to Costa Rica, but don't be surprised if she comes home without a child. My husband shared that with me. I was like, what? I was so surprised because I already knew that I was going to have a child. I was going to have this child. She was going to be ours.
And just moments after getting off the airplane, there she was.
Yeah, like it probably took us 20 minutes to drive to this woman's home. But then she was right there. And I just hadn't anticipated that. It caught me by surprise.
Yes.
My husband did join me there in Costa Rica after I'd been there for 2 weeks. At the time when he came, we had just received word that Janie's father, could petition her and get her. The ruling in Costa Rica is that anyone in Costa Rica could claim a child before they'd let it go to someone outside, an outsider.
Anyone?
That's what I was told. That's what my brain understood. So my husband was kind of concerned about that. We started talking to the Patronato, which is an adoption agency. They said, that's right. That's what can happen. We actually then located the birth father and went to talk to him. We had someone that took care of the baby while we were gone, but just to plead our case to him, that what we would do for her. He then said to us, well, I have some people that I know that if I get her, I can sell her and make some money.
Oh.
And I remember trying to stay composed when he said that to me because I was stunned.
You had to keep from wringing his neck.
Yeah, because, and he was a little man. I felt like I was kind of a monster next to him. The people there were were really small,
And
really
you're
tiny.
so petite.
Well, he was probably 5'2", and he just was a little man. The next day after we met him, and we talked to the patronato multiple times, and actually my husband had. And so I dreamt that night how I could just kidnap her out of the country. We decided to take her to the orphanage so that he could not then sell her. That's the only thing that came to our minds to do, because if we couldn't have her, we didn't want to let him have that privilege. So we went to the orphanage and we called them because they had to be called to let us come in. I was on the phone and I said, well, my husband tried to call you. She says, yes, we remember talking to him and we told him to proceed with the adoption. Reed, they said that to you? He says, yeah, I wasn't sure what they meant by that. Anyway, they're awesome. So we didn't worry about that. They said, he'll be petitioned and he'll have to show his ability to care for that child. So I felt a lot less stressed about it, and it ended up that he was petitioned. He never showed up at court, which is even better. I wanted to kind of touch upon the tender mercies that occurred to me in Costa Rica.
Okay.
Because it just was so profound to me what continued to happen. At one point, I'm kind of persistent, like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I guess I was the squeaky wheel. We had an attorney there from Costa Rica. We had to have one. And I was always making him banana bread and taking them into him. And when I'd go see him, I would just go into his office and there'd be all these people sitting in his office, and he would just take care of one of us at a time while he was on the phone speaking Spanish, and then he'd be speaking English, and it was just amazing. But one day, I felt like I wanted to make sure things were going right. So I went into the courthouse and I asked the judge that was over our case to come out and speak to me.
You asked the judge
Yeah,
this?
I didn't think anything. I just went in and did this because I couldn't think of anything else to do. I could maybe understand what was going on. 'Cause my attorney was telling me things, and whenever my attorney would give me documents, I would send them home, they'd get translated, and they'd be sent back to me. So then I could understand what the whole process was. So the judge actually came out of her court and spoke to me, and we only spoke for maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And at one point I said to her, Christmas is going to be coming, and I'd really like to be home for Christmas because families should be together. And she said to me, so when do you anticipate maybe being home? And I said, yesterday. She corrected me because she thought I meant tomorrow. She said, oh, you mean tomorrow? And I said, no, yesterday. And I was speaking Spanish to her.
Oh, you were speaking Spanish.
Well, I didn't think I was speaking it very well. But anyway, I spoke Spanish to her. And after she said, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. Oh. And so my attorney's office was just like across the street. I went immediately over to my attorney and told him what I did. He says, what? No one asks the judge to come out of her chambers. I says, well, this is the first time for everything. I also said, yeah, she said that you spoke fluent Spanish. I said, whoa, because I always spoke English to him because he spoke English really well.
I see.
And I said, that's really weird. So that was a tender mercy that I was able to communicate with her. And I think it made a difference.
And it came across as if it were fluent Spanish. You feel like you don't speak really at that level.
No. I went to Spain and studied art. But I just followed the Spanish majors around. And they just did the talking for me. And when I was in stores, I learned how to say, no, I'm just looking. I'd say, no, estoy mirando, which means I'm just looking, don't bother me. But it was a couple days later after I'd called the judge out of her chambers. I left the residence where I was staying at a little apartment. And I walked up the street, and I could either go down the hill to catch the bus, or I could go up the hill to catch the bus. To me, it made more sense to go down the hill because it was easier, but something told me to go up the hill. So I went up the hill. When I got there to the bus stop, the judge that I called out of her chamber, she was right there. And she said to me, go see your attorney right now. It's really important that he has some good news for you. I mean, I was flabbergasted, but I went and saw him, and he said, yes, you actually were able to move things forward quicker because you went and saw her. So what a tender mercy. I mean, sometimes we do things that we're told, or we think, well, I didn't actually think it was not right to do that, but do things that might be out of the norm. And we're really blessed. While I was there, I actually attended an American ward. And after I'd been there a few weeks, some of the members told me, now be very careful when you go into San Jose. That's the capital there.
Mhm.
Don't go through the center of town, because if you don't have your passport with you, they're going to stop you and they're going to harass you. And I said, I go through there every single day and they wave at me because I'm going to the post office to see what mail I've gotten. They said, no, we're stopped every time. I said, they do wave at me.
And they couldn't believe it.
And they just were so shocked.
And here you had done this commonly every day.
That's
too.
right.
And your attorney had said to you, I can't believe you asked the
Come out
judge
of-
to come out of her
Yeah.
chambers. And look what it turned into.
I know. It was such a blessing.
You running into the judge at the bus stop and her saying, go ahead and go talk to your attorney. He has good news for you, just because of that conversation you had
Right.
with her.
And I remember writing home to my husband and telling him what happened.
Mm.
Because even to this day, it still just sticks out in my mind how I was directed by the Lord. But every morning I would pray when I'd get up. And I'd lay out all these documents on my bed. And then I would just pick ones I thought I should have. And always that day, I always had the right documents with me. It was the oddest thing. I'm so grateful I understood that that's what I was supposed to do.
And you also acted with such courage and boldness.
Well, I didn't know better, you know,
Yeah.
so I guess maybe if I were to do it now, I'd be more cautious, but there is the time and the season for everything.
Mm.
After my husband got home from Costa Rica, I was really missing my kids, and there was a place I could go to in the city, San Jose, a place that was a calling place that they could make a call for you. Or if my husband was going to call me, I'd show up then, and then they'd page me, and I'd get on the phone with him. And my daughter got on the phone that day, and she said, Mom, when are you going to be home? And it was probably mid-October. I said, oh, I'm going to be home December 17th. My husband was really kind of upset that I would tell her that. I says, well, that's the only date that popped into my head. But then along the way, my attorney told me that they needed to do a home study for me there in Costa Rica, which we had done this extensive home study in North Salt Lake. Had social services come out. They had to do a background check on us. They did all this stuff for us to do. And we had that all translated and sent to the Consul General of Costa Rica. And that was all translated in Spanish, and Costa Rica now had that. And I was really beside myself. And where I lived in this little apartment, there was a gate. Everything was gated and locked in Costa Rica. They had a very low crime rate on like children's abduction, but their theft rate was really, really high. So people all had bars on their windows, and they had all the communities were all little, this home had a gate around it. So I knew I had to go get a key copied so I could give it to them, so that when they came to give my home study, they could get in. And I was so frustrated because I had this other fellow that I'd met there, another husband and wife that I met there. He said, Mary, you're also worried about this. You know, you just have to surrender and realize that you can't do anything to change this. He told me the serenity prayer for Alcoholics Anonymous, that just take care of what you can do. But I said, well, forget that. And I went to this place that was like the social services. And I went in and I explained to them that I brought a key for them to come up to my apartment, and that I also needed to know when they'd come. And they said, oh, you know what? We can just visit with you right now.
What? At the Social Security
Yes.
office?
Yeah. They said, we don't need to do that because we already have your home study. I did not argue with them. I said, okay. In fact, they wanted me to hand them Janie, and I was really hesitant. They said, we want to give her a little check over to make sure she's okay while we have a little discussion with you. I said, okay, so you'll give her back? They looked at me like I was being silly, but I just had a little talk with them, and they said, this is all taken care of now. You know, and then the Lord took care of it. And right before I went into the social services office, there was a little bathroom I found, and I went in and I knelt down and I prayed. And it seems weird, I would kneel down in some public bathroom. But to me, it was so important for me to ask for help. Because I knew if I asked, he'd give it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he wouldn't give it to me the way I wanted to have it, but at least I was going to ask. That was so amazing to me.
That is amazing.
And then there was times that I started feeling really, really homesick. Like my chest would hurt. And I'd never experienced that before. When I went away to college, never.
Well, but now you have 2 kids at home that you're missing also, right?
Yes.
Now, how long had you been gone?
Well, at this point, I was gone maybe 2 months. And I was
That's
there
a
for
long
3 months altogether. They said that if my adoption wasn't final by January 1st, then everything's closes down for 6 weeks because countries have these holidays.
I
So
see.
I was frantic about that. My chest hurt so bad. But what I would do is I'd lay on my bed and I'd start naming everything I was grateful for. As I would do that, it was like this pressure would leave my chest. And I didn't understand why.
Another tender mercy on how to soothe yourself through the anxiety of the ups and downs of this adoption, become final or not.
Well, yeah, I was waiting it out. All these little things had to be done so that it could be finalized. So it was near the end of November. It was getting really close to being final. In fact, I think they said, it's finalized now, but you need to start making arrangements to go home. So there was a little travel agency that I was always walking by. They knew me, and I would go in and make arrangements, and everything was so booked because it was the holidays. They couldn't get anything until the end of the year. I still persisted, and every day would go by and say, was there anything changed? And they say, no, Mary, it's still super booked up. One day I was walking by there, and they motioned me to come in. They said, Mary, we have a flight that you can take on the 17th. And I said, that's perfect, because that's when I told my daughter I would be home. On the 17th of December is when they told me I could come home.
Ah,
The Lord works so mysteriously, and I did not know when I told that to my daughter, that's really what was going to happen.
but it's what came to your mind.
It just happened. And I remember even that day after I left the traveler's office, my wallet was stolen. I had wanted to go buy my kids presents. I didn't have the opportunity to do that because I didn't have any money. Someone I met there actually lent me some money so I could get a taxi to the airport and finished up stuff there.
Did you have the money to get home?
The ticket was already bought. The ticket was purchased, so the money was just to buy extra gifts.
Oh, okay.
When I got home, Holly was 8 years old and Adam was 6, and they were so happy to see me. I was so happy to see them. Then Christmas occurred, and I remember saying to my daughter, Holly, I'm so sorry that I didn't buy you a lot of gifts. She said, Mom, you brought me home the best present I would have ever wanted. You brought me home Janie. To this day, Holly will still own that. That was the best Christmas I've ever had. And that's my story about Janie.
Oh,
She was such a blessing in our lives.
yeah.
And she's still such a great blessing to me.
It's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it with us, Mary. Now, doesn't she live quite close to you?
She lives about a mile away.
Okay, tell us about her family.
Now, she's married, and he's a wonderful man. Sometimes she'll text me, what can I do for you? And it's like, wow, she's awesome. She has 3 beautiful daughters, Elizabeth, Scarlett, and Pearl. Elizabeth's a dancer. Elizabeth's now 16, so Scarlett's 14, and she does taekwondo. Their youngest, who is 11,
Okay.
she's a gymnast, and she's just so talented at that, and she's so good. So Janie is an amazing daughter, and she's just there for me.
Oh, so
But all my kids are,
all your kids are, all
Yeah.
7.
Not all 7 are, but they would all like to be.
They'd all like to be.
She kind of
Yes.
opened the door for me. So we adopted 4 more children after her.
And were any from another country?
No, they were all from Utah. Yeah. So we were just very blessed. We actually didn't really apply for them.
Mm,
We were doing foster care for
see.
the state of Utah. So
I
you
see.
become foster parents of maybe a child that's younger than 5. And if you have them long enough, sometimes they become available and then you could adopt them. So I thought, what a grand idea. We got a little boy after we got Janie. He was 4 and Janie was still 3. There's this child, he became available. He was being fostered and they were going to adopt him, but they opted not to. They had him and a brother. And they opted to keep the brother, but not Benjamin.
Okay.
So Benjamin, he had a brother in a foster home. And it was a legal risk foster home, so they were going to be able to adopt them. But they decided to let Benjamin go and just keep the older brother. Social services were discussing this case. We actually were approved before we got into the meeting for that adoption.
I'm so glad to hear that boy was placed in a family after his brother was
Well,
placed.
and his family that kept his brother were very olive-skinned, and so was Craig, the older brother. And Benjamin is really fair and pink. And so the family came to meet us. That when they met us, they said, well, that's why, because he was supposed to be your child.
Benjamin, has he found his brother?
Well, they when they got older,
Mm-hmm.
he did. There had been a family of like 6 children that were taken custody of.
I see.
So he does have a relationship with a couple of them.
Okay.
So then after we got Benjamin and we were doing foster care, my foster care was like kids that were older than Benjamin and Janie. So I decided I wanted to get kids that were younger than them so that they could be the oldest kids.
Yes.
So then the state approached us about the legal at risk. And then, in fact, we got these 3 children placed all at once. They're a sibling group. It was a set of twins, a boy and a girl, and their little baby sister that was 2 months old. So the twins were 15 months old and the sister was 2 months old. So we got them all together.
That's a good age to get them. Although your hands were full.
They were
Children that
harder as
age.
teenagers than they were then. They had a mind of their own when they got to be teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
They would have overalls on. I would just pick them both up by their overalls and walk. And have the baby in it snuggly. And my daughter Holly, she was newly married at the time, and she would come over a lot and help me with the kids.
Oh, she was married by that time.
So there's 22 years between my oldest, Holly,
Mhm.
and my youngest, Mystery.
That's quite a spread.
During the years when I'd have trouble with, like, Benjamin, it was kind of a handful. I'd had a dream about him and Janie before they were ever born. In my dream, we were in the store, and Benjamin was standing in the shopping cart, and Janie was in a little infant seat. In my dream, it was just a little boy and a baby sister. So when they called and told me that it was a little girl, I thought, oh, well, it was just a dream, because I thought I'd get a boy first.
Oh.
But then after we had Janie till she was 3, and then we got Benjamin, and he was the child I saw in my dream. So when I'd struggled with him, I remember I had dreamt about him before he was born. And so he was my child.
Mm-hmm. So it helped you through those difficult
Yeah.
times.
Yeah,
You knew he was meant for you.
he's a good boy.
No wonder you those dreams. You needed that for those hard times.
That's true.
Oh, inspired, Mary. Thank you. Thank you for sharing these beautiful stories of adoption. Boy, you've given your life to motherhood.
I always wanted to be a mother. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'd say, oh, a mother.
I want to thank our audience for listening today. Wasn't Mary's story inspirational? We can certainly see how the Lord played a part in bringing Janie into their family. And a few more children after Janie. While you're here, be sure to like and subscribe to the Dear Daughters of God channel. We want to have you here for every video, so hit that subscribe button. For now, I want to thank you and say farewell until we meet again.